So, good morning, everybody. Have you ever had one of those days where everything we try to do to bring an event to you, it's like roadblock after roadblock after roadblock? You guys ever had that? You ever had like an important day in your life and you're super jazzed and excited, and then it's like, all hell breaks loose the night of, the day before, etc. I'm going to say that happened to some degree for this, just in everything, okay? And I know that when we hit these road bumps of the adversary, okay, I'm a Christian, I believe wholeheartedly that you're here today for divine appointment. In fact, we prayed over every single seat and said that each person that sits in a seat is here to receive a divine message. Something that doesn't even come from me, but comes from God through me. Does that make sense to you guys? Some of you may still go, I don't know exactly what you mean by that, but you'll figure it out, because somehow the great thing about when I speak is he's going to hear something that he needed to hear, you're going to hear something that you need to hear, and yet I said the same thing, but you guys heard two different things. And I know that there's a calling and a stirring that each of you have, otherwise you wouldn't be here today. You're looking for something. Would you agree? Amen. And I need to kind of figure out what it is, but I also don't, because God knows what it is. And I was up, ready for this? 4:50 this morning, like this. Or you ever had that moment? And it's like, I had all these thoughts coming into my mind about what I should say today. And so I'm just ferociously, I don't normally do this, guys. I changed my slides like 80% this morning, because I'm like, okay, God, if this is what I need to do, then I will do it. So please understand, I'm here today as a gift for myself. I love doing this. If you guys know, I have a radio show every week. I do podcasts every week. We do this event every month all over Charlotte. And in fact, I have patients that aren't just here, but in other states, in other cities. We had someone last week contact us from Canada going, how can I meet with you? I want what you have. So you guys are blessed, in my opinion, to be able to physically be sitting here. Can we just do a quick shout out to all of our live stream viewers? Can you guys turn around, those of you in the front two rows? See the little camera right in the middle? Woo! Hello, Facebook and YouTube and Twitter and Instagram and all of everybody watching. And this week, prepping for this, I was doing a follow-up consult with one of my patients, and she's down in Florida, and she recorded a small video for you guys as we begin. So are you all okay if you hear from someone who wants to share a message for you, and then I'll give you the message God gave me, and we're going to have a lot of fun today. Is that all right?
Yes.
Okay, yes. So please, again, like technology was the thing that was like the barrier today. Nothing's working. The clickers isn't working. This wasn't working. The cameras were breaking all over the place. So this should now go.
My name's Colleen. I live down here in beautiful Sarasota, Florida. And I have been a patient of Dr. Ernst for the last 3 months. 6 months ago, I was really feeling a certain doom about the future. I'm 57 years old. I should be pretty healthy, but why would a healthy person feel so horrible? I had such fatigue, 10 hours of sleep in a night, get up and just want to lay down, take a nap. Why would I be so fatigued? I have been on thyroid medication for well over 10 years, maybe 15 years. Heart palpitations, terrible, until I was really frightened. I thought, I'm going to have a stroke here, and I needed help. But I knew the only help that I knew to get was from my physician. And I thought, that's going to lead to the 3 Ps, pills, procedures, and poverty. And I thought, and you know what, and pain. As fate would have it, the hand of God, my girlfriend from the Charlotte area sent me a YouTube video for another friend with diabetes, but it was a talk by Dr. Ernst, maybe like the one that you're at today. So the first thing he did was send me to go to the lab after I told him my problems. He said, well, now let's look at what's really going on inside. And so I've got a 5-page blood work up here. And when I went to the lab, the young lady was getting me ready, and I didn't know what I was doing there. So I said, what kind of tests am I getting today? And she looked at it and she said, the works. This told him from inside what I was telling him from outside. And he knew exactly how to address it. My total cholesterol went down 40 points in the last 3 months. I'm really thrilled with these results, and it's kind of proof. So I guess the thing I'd like to say to you is that he can help you. I just am so pleased with the vitality I feel right now. And then when I get this second report back, he's like, okay, we've done really good here, but let's switch it up. We're going to do this little thing. It's tailored just to you. So one final discovery I have found through working with Dr. Ernst is that old-fashioned relationship with my physician that I wanted. And I think he can do that for you if you want to make that commitment. So it is a lifestyle change, but it's worth it. It's worth it.
So out of curiosity, how many of you caught at the very, very end how she said it was that personal relationship with her doctor? Because I don't know about you, but today it's kind of like you're wasting my time. You got 3 minutes. I just want to hear what you have to say. I'm going to write you a prescription. Out you go because I have, like we're in a disease state crisis. Would you agree? We're overburdening our healthcare system. We recognize that the approach we're taking isn't the answer. Would you guys agree? I mean, I don't know of anybody who says, I can't wait to take more medications, correct? Okay, all of us, everybody I ever meet says, I want to know how to get off of these, and I want to know how to never have to ever take them in the first place. Would you agree? So I asked her, she sent this to me kind of early, in the week, and I said, why didn't you say anything about your thyroid? And she goes, oh, I completely forgot. I'm so sorry. I was so, isn't it funny? We focus on something like, it's like, Dr. Ernst, this is great. My cholesterol went down. Like, woo, we didn't even do anything for my cholesterol. Because that's really neat, isn't it? Cholesterol going down 40 points in 3 months. And I said, why didn't you say anything about your thyroid? She goes, oh, well, I thought you were going to share with them all the results about my thyroid. So I will, because you guys are going to see this. But I asked her, I said, what did you mean by the third P, the poverty side? And you know what she told me? She goes, I've spent hundreds of dollars for the last 20 years taking thyroid medications. And when I went to the lab and I asked them how much would this test cost, like if I was walking in and I said, buy this test, pay for it, it's an $1,100 test. And she goes, I don't have the funds to be able to do that. You gave this test to me, and I'll show you guys how I can give certain tests to you at discounts, severe cost reductions, etc. And she goes, even if I had spent the money for it, it would have been the best investment I ever made in my life because it finally showed the cause. And I don't know if you guys know about this. Like, just for show of hands, currently, who's taking thyroid medication going, I want to get off, like that's why I'm here today. Thyroid, 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 right? Okay, those of you who didn't raise your hands, are you wondering if you have a thyroid problem? And your doctor said, no, your test looks normal and you don't, out of curiosity? Because that was me. Okay, I knew there was something wrong, and my wife. Okay, we didn't grow up super ultra healthy. It's not like we were just born and perfect. Okay, that's the way it should be. But we went through this massive journey, my wife and I, on trying to figure out how to get well. And what I'm going to share with you is the last 15 years of my draining my bank account, trying to figure it out for myself. I mean, I've spent thousands of dollars on tests. I've gone all across the United States. I've even gone out of the U.S. Just out of curiosity, has anybody gotten to the point where you said, medicine doesn't have an answer, I'm going to go to another country? Anybody yet? Yes, you have? Yes? Fantastic, right? So the key is, I don't want to have to get to the point where you have to say, okay, well, I'm going to have to go to Spain for this, because the answer is actually inside of you. You have the power and the capacity to heal yourself. Now, we're going to go deeper into this, but watch this. So when I met with Colleen, the funny thing is, because she was taking thyroid meds, her TSH, her T4 were normal, because what is she doing? She is supplementing by taking prescriptions, a medication to make her labs look good. So when her doctor runs her tests, they're always like, you're good, you're taking your thyroid drugs, your numbers look great. And she goes, like everybody else does, why do I still feel what? Why am I so tired all the time? How come I can't lose weight? Why is my hair falling out still? I thought making these numbers good was supposed to solve all my problems, correct? And so I went deeper, and there's some things I'm going to teach you guys, and to look into the ideas of, well, what is her actual active thyroid hormone doing? It's low. So they're giving her a supplement, but she's not making this, because what she is making, and this is something you need to learn about today. I would write this down. Hopefully you guys engage and take notes. I see some of you have our note sheets up front. If you brought a notepad, hallelujah, great. She's like, 1 page is not enough. I know Lucille, right? She's like, I'm going to take 10 pages of notes. But the key is, here's this. You need to become your own doctors today. Would you guys agree with that? You have to educate yourself. So take the last 20 years of how I've educated myself. I've boiled it down into a simple message on what causes thyroid issues and why your doctor can't find it. And when you figure out the cause, how you can clear it out yourself by removing the interference. Reverse T3 is a toxic thyroid hormone. If it goes up, then your body will actually start to make you feel like your life is falling apart. Reverse T3 causes you to be fatigued. It causes your hair to fall out. It creates anxiety. It creates all those sensations that you are saying, doctor, please, why? And the reason that they don't know this happening is, do they run this test? So somebody help me out. Have you guys had a reverse T3 test run? Those of you who are taking Synthroid as a medication right now, have they run that test? They have?
Yes.
Yes. And for you? You had someone else do it. And we'll talk about that, right? Now, the unique thing here is she tested positive for the 90% cause of all thyroid conditions. 90%. If you're taking a thyroid medication right now, you have a 9 out of 10 chance that what you actually have is an autoimmune condition where your body is attacking your thyroid gland and attacking the thyroid hormone and the enzymes that produce it. So if I see, for example, antibodies are excruciatingly high for both the globulin and the peroxidase, and again, I'm going to teach you what these mean, I can get a baseline and I can tell her, wait a second, now I know the cause of this, and rather than just popping a pill to make your labs look good, why don't we go through cleaning house? Clean the roots out. And I'm going to teach you guys today what those roots are, because you have a 9 out of 10 chance you would test positive if I tested you. Does that make sense? Now here she is several months later, and notice we're starting to clean house. Her reverse T3 toxic hormone is down significantly. She halved her peroxidase antibodies by 50%, which means she's less immune. But again, remember, 3 months. Are we going to be able to make you 100% healthy and well in 3 months? I wish, I hope. Some of you, like she said, 20 years. But to take 3 months and get a 50% improvement, that's phenomenal, is it not? So what I'm going to show you today is your body has the capacity to do that, but you have to sort of begin to ask yourself, why would you want to go through the process of becoming your own doctor? See, the one thing that I struggle with is most people come to me and they're like, Dr. Ernst, what do I take to make my thyroid better? And it's, stop taking the medication, because that's making your thyroid worse. And then they'll say to me, well, what do I take instead? See, we live in a world, would you guys agree, where we believe for some reason that we can swallow our health from some sort of supplement or pill, and it's going to change this. Okay? That's medicine's mentality. Okay? What I'm going to teach you today is your body should already be at its optimum health. It knows how to produce the hormone. It knows how to regulate it. It knows where it comes from, and it knows what it needs to do with it. The reason it's not is you have a key underlying interference. It's just like, as an analogy, if I drop this pen, will it hit the floor? Will it? Okay, gravity dictates it will. Can your body heal? Yes. If you broke your leg, as long as you cast the bone back together, what happens 100% of the time? It grows back. If you cut your skin, as it bleeds and it scabs over, it grows back. So the only thing that would prevent this from hitting the floor is what? If there's something in the way, an interference. The only thing that would make your thyroid underactive is an interference. Now, if you don't know the interference or you don't even know to look for it, all we could do is we could try to make the labs look better by giving you a pill from the outside. So there's a big, deep why. Okay, and I asked this question a couple times, and I'm curious, would some of you maybe be willing to tell me the why behind you wanting to get off your medications? For me, it was the fact that my health was falling apart. Okay, when my wife and I got married almost 20 years ago, we wanted the iconic sort of like life, right? You know, it's the two of us against the world. We're going to develop our family, develop our career, begin our life, etc. And we were struggling to have children because we found out that a thyroid problem, one of the underlying causes is what? It's infertility. We also noticed that as we were studying to become doctors, she's also a doctor, so am I, that we were always constantly fatigued and tired, etc. We set up our new clinic, and literally it almost wipes my wife to death. She got to the point where they claimed, our doctor said, well, her thyroid is completely inactive. Not only that, but she's testing positive for other issues like Lyme's disease and mold. She's falling apart, and we're here going, God, I thought we were the pinnacle pictures of health. So we spent 5 to 10 years researching, investigating, figuring things out, teaching you what I now know today. And God has physically blessed us, not just with our life and our health, but we have 2 kids, which I think I have right through here, if this is going to work. Yes, my second is turning 2 actually in 2 days. And my first is who we call our angel, because again, we have brown hair, she got blonde hair. They're both blue-eyed, by the way, both blue-eyed, and we're both brown-eyed. So I look at it as the pain and the perseverance of our journey for our health personally has been a blessing for me this way. And I know one thing, when God blesses you, what are you supposed to do? Well, thank him first, and then what do you do with all those blessings? You're supposed to bless others. So we came up with this concept years ago that how I can bless others is by teaching people what we learned through our misery, which is why I started the radio show, 7 years ago, which is why we do these seminar series, which is why I asked you to come. Does that make sense? And I love the fact that it's a Saturday and I'm here with you, even though I could be here with them, because again, by divine appointment, I know there's something going to be said that is going to change your life. Does that make sense? So somebody give me maybe a why they came today. What are you looking for, and for what reason are you looking for it?
More energy.
Energy? Anybody else, just for show of hands? Who would like to have like endless amounts of energy? Only 6 or, oh, there we go. Okay, great. What else?
I want to know what the thyroid does.
We're going to talk all about that, right? Now, what I'm hearing is, I want info, okay? Let me ask you a question. Why do you want the information about your thyroid? Who said that, by the way? Sorry. Yes?
Well, I'm a diabetic, and I don't know if thyroid has anything to do with that or not.
Okay, can I just say a quick answer to all of this? Ready? Your thyroid has to do with everything in your body. Okay, so we see heart disease, we see high blood pressure, we see cholesterol issues, we see diabetes. Believe it or not, we see autoimmunity. We see all major issues because your thyroid regulates your energy, and it actually tells your cells what to do at a hormonal level. So if your thyroid is low, your cellular function is low. And the unique thing about the body is when you get a deficiency in a function, it will always increase a reaction called a symptom. Sugars go up, pressures go up, cholesterols go up. The rise is a response to the deficiency. Does that make sense? The interference that's creating the condition, your body reacts and says, well, I must make another system overproductive. Now, what does medicine do? They detect the overproductiveness, and they give you a pill to do what? To bring that production down, but does that address your cause? So does this get worse over time? Yeah. So as that gets worse and bigger, what does this constantly keep doing? And so you have to take more and more. Do you guys see how the problem is? We're chasing the wrong animal. We're looking at the wrong thing. I know it's tough, isn't it? Because they're always like, well, look at these numbers, and you need to take this drug to make this go down. Or look over here, these symptoms. You need to do this instead. We need to step away from treating your thyroid as the problem, and again, look at it as it's a reaction to the underlying issue. Who else? What are we looking for? Yes, ma'am?
Better sleep.
Sleep, my goodness, right? Well, guess what? And you know the challenge is, most of us try to sleep more to get more energy, correct? And most of us get frustrated that we can't stay asleep throughout the night. Out of curiosity, ready? Because there's a specific time the thyroid affects people between 2 to 3 a.m. in the morning. And it's always, anybody?
Yes.
Okay? Now, the reason I say this to you is you have a 24-hour energy pathway system. It's like a highway or a clock. If your thyroid has an interference, all your energy gets jammed up in your thyroid, so all your cellular power, and your body goes, why is it not moving? And it wakes you up. Hopefully, so that you today, look, we didn't have this years ago. You should be going to Google, why do I keep waking up at 2 a.m. in the morning? And if you came across my site, you would see something's wrong with your thyroid.
Yeah,
Does that make sense?
It's not the dog, so.
Yes. Yes. Anybody else? I'm surprised the number one thing doesn't pop up on here. Weight loss, right? Most here. Secretly, we're all like, can I just please lose some weight? Okay? Now, let me teach you something real fast, and I'll go more in detail with it. You have basically, I wonder if it's, hang on 1 second. It's coming up. But you have basically thyroid hormone active, and you have, remember that toxic one I told you guys about? Which we have to intimately talk about this today. As this goes down, and as this goes up, it aggravates all of these reactions. The higher your reverse T3, the less energy you have, the less you can sleep, and the more weight you gain. The higher your T3, the more you burn fat naturally, the better you sleep, and the endless amounts of energy you have. But yet, what do our doctors supplement us with? They're not giving us this. They give us T4. And there's a specific reason, which we'll talk about it. But the problem is your body gets to choose. Do I take T4 and turn it into this? Or do I take T4 and turn it into this? If you have a deficiency in your body functionally, what it will do is it will snake all of it to here. So that's why sometimes you take your medication, T4, and your body says, well, because we have these interferences that you didn't address, turn that synthroid, turn the levothyroxine, turn the natrothyroid, turn the armithyroid into reverse T3, and so we get worse with our symptoms. Okay? Robert Frost had a great quote that I want to share with you. if you're at a fork in the road, right? With our health, with our thyroid, etc., we can go the way everyone else is going, which will be the wide path. Okay, that's medicine. We'll swallow a pill, etc. Or we can take the less traveled path, which I promise you is you discovering for yourself your type, because no one else is going to do it for you. You have to take the responsibility to seek someone out who knows what they're doing and say, please help, or go do it yourself. And that path can be tough sometimes, right? As we get to it, it narrows down. There might be a branch or a tree or something in the way. And sometimes, depending upon your perseverance, if it requires you to pull out a chainsaw and cut that tree down, it's an analogy, to remove it, to keep going through, this is the roadblock that you have to decide if you're going to persevere through it. It's been said that if I show you the exact way, like if I look at all of your labs and I say, please do this, that only 3% of people actually follow through with it, because there will always be a roadblock that comes. Would you agree? Well, doc, I did what you said and I feel worse. This isn't working. I quit. That's the 97% pathway that most people take. Doc, you said I was going to feel better in 2 weeks. It's not. Now something's happening. I don't want to do this anymore. Do you guys understand? Like, we give up so quickly, partly because we don't recognize, like today, by divine appointment, there was craziness that happened because there was a greater, I'll call it, evil that was trying to prevent me from talking to you guys today. So you got to understand, when you start to heal, you're going to have to jump over some road bumps. One of the biggest road bumps, because I saw some of you doing it, right? Let's be honest, okay? How many of you opened this packet, went through here, and you're looking at this stuff, because I see you guys do it. You pulled this out, and you're like, what? $1,600? Just out of curiosity, right? There's no way I can't afford this, right? That's a mentality. Would you agree? It's a mentality. I can't afford this, okay? That's actually the retail cost, if you ask your insurance, to have them test some of the things I'm going to test today. But what if I could show you how you can knock that down more than 50%, save money, create the greatest investment? Don't let something as simple as your brain's ability to come up with an excuse hold you back, because I promise you the answer lies in you figuring out the cause of your problem. Does that make sense? So I have a couple things for you. Number one, yes?
If you're looking for things to address today, two things. One is, what is free T3?
We'll talk about that.
What is Hashimoto's?
Yes, right? Who knows about Hashimoto's disease? We have to talk about that.
Okay.
Free means this: it is not bound to the thyroglobulin transport protein. I don't want to get too detailed, but you have to have a protein that carries your hormones throughout your body. If all of your available hormone is bound to the protein, then it means it's not free and available and ready to hit the cell. We'll talk about that. Very, very important. Okay? But I think the global message that we all need to focus on is this. Would you agree? You have this innate power inside of you to heal. There's nothing that medicine can ever provide that your body can't already do for itself, but they try to trick it into it because of some chemical stimulation. I look at it as you're here today and you have the power, you have the ability, and the message that I heard, that what woke me up at 4:30 in the morning was, please tell everybody that I love them, I gave them the ability to heal, and they don't need to look at the outside, they just need to look at the inside. And what I want to show you today is what is inside that you need to pay attention to that you haven't been looking at yet. Is that fair? So let's talk about some terms and some goals and some things I have for you. Okay, we're going to do this, and I'll even talk about some things that I don't necessarily have a slide for, but I will do it for you. But my thought was this: what if I show you the 3 main underlying reasons that your thyroid would not be working? What are the top 3 interferences that after 20 plus years of research and then 10 years clinically running thousands of tests do I see? There's a common pattern that I see. And I'm going to show you the tests that you can get so you can discover if you have one of these 3. And then we have to talk about the idea that we're constantly triggering our thyroid. One of the number 1 triggers for your thyroid is the amount of stress in your life. And I hate to say it, but all of us kind of go, well, it's just, how do I get rid of that? Okay, do you guys realize the only way to have 0 stress in your life is to be living in the heavenly realms up above? Okay, so it's never going to go away. But what you can learn is you can learn how to manage how your body reacts to it, right? Sometimes we look at stress as it's the situation and we blame it, but in fact it's our reaction to the situation. Does that make sense to you guys? How many of you, if I asked you to come up here and just stand like Angela did and share your story, would go, no, it's too much stress for me. I can't do that. Okay, but yet she loves to do it. I love to do it. So each of us need to figure out how do we manage our stressors, and we'll talk a little bit about that today. And then I want to show you how over the last 10 years we've seen thyroid diseases reverse in literally 90 days, 6 months, etc. To the point where even you'll see some patients saying, my doctor said I have to stop taking the medication because it's making me overactive. Because think about it. If my thyroid's healthy and I take your thyroid medications, what will happen to me? I'll have an overactive production because I'm taking too much, and my body will become hyperthyroid if I'm normal thyroid. So if we let your body repair itself, what you're taking will make it too responsive and you will have to stop. And that's the greatest part. Because everybody else says, how do I get off of them? We get you so healthy, your body says it's time to quit. Does that make sense? And that's my prayer for you guys today. So a couple things you guys need to know. TSH, because we're going to throw these numbers or these phrases around, and I want to make sure we're all clear on them. If you want to write them down, you can. If you want to take a picture of the screen, you can. But TSH is known as the thyroid stimulation hormone. It comes from your brain, and it tells your thyroid hormonally to make more thyroid hormones. The thyroid hormone that your thyroid makes is called T4. It is an inactive hormone. It does absolutely nothing in your body until it is converted into the active form. The active form of thyroid hormone is called T3. And this is what we want to have. What more than likely a lot of you have is not enough of this, way too much of this, and possibly the antibodies going on underneath. Now, when your doctor tests your thyroid, mostly they'll just start here. Would you agree? And they'll run a TSH test. And if the TSH is normal, they'll just blanketly say, oh, there's nothing wrong with your thyroid. It's almost like you're scratching the surface and you're going, I don't see anything, so everything else must be okay. The challenge today is there's absolutely no clinical studies that exist that say TSH is a direct connection to thyroid function. Zero. What we do know is that it's a hormone that gets stimulated by your brain when something's out of balance downstream. So if your TSH is high, then it tells us that you are not converting what the hormone your thyroid is making into the active form. You're more than likely converting it into this. Does that make sense? So if my reverse T3 goes up, then my T3 goes down and TSH will go up. And that's about as far as the doctors look. Is it up or is it down? Okay? Now what I want to go through is how do we determine specifically which condition you have. Thyroid peroxidase is the enzyme in your thyroid that makes T4. So thyroid peroxidase is the enzyme that makes T4. Thyroglobulin is like the backbone barrier that the hormone is made of. So you have to have sort of like an anchor that this enzyme attaches iodine, and the number of iodines determines if it's T4, T3, T2, etc. Is everybody okay with that? It's a little tough, isn't it? Okay, let's try once more. Your thyroid tissue produces something called thyroglobulin, which is a backbone, like, piece of wood, more or less. And what happens is the thyroid peroxidase enzyme takes iodine out of your blood and attaches the iodine to the thyroglobulin protein. If you have 4 iodines attached to thyroglobulin, you have T4. 3 is T3. 2, T2. 1, T1. Okay? Now, the reason we have to talk about these is if you have lots and lots and lots of this, but not enough of this, then it tells us that your conversion process has been interfered with. Does that make sense? If you have a lot of this, then you have antibodies built against it, then you have the autoimmune state. So I know it's tough because it's medical terminology, but I'm going to make it super simple for you and walk you through it step by step. Right? Okay? Classic signs that your thyroid is low. Now, what if you're like, I'm cold all the time, and you go to your doctor and they test your TSH and they say, well, you know what? Your TSH is normal. Normal. And you say, well, then why am I feeling like this? And they go, I don't know. Right? And then it's the classic stuff where, again, for a lot of women and for men, right? You'll find it in the bottom drain. You'll find it in your brush. And again, it sounds a lot like a thyroid, but because they're testing superficially, they say, well, we can't find it. And then we also tend to see things like this, right? So I'm tired, again, technology. I'm tired all the time. And I'm going to the gym, I'm eating right, I'm doing everything right, and yet I'm still so tired. Make sense? And then, unfortunately, what starts to spill up, which is I'm losing the ability to focus, to pay attention. It's called brain fog. Okay? Brain fog is a secondary effect to your thyroid because of what's going on in your digestive system. And there's a direct connection between your gut and your thyroid, and your intestines make all of the hormones that make you feel good, feel focused. And again, remember, T3 gives you focus and clarity. Reverse T3 makes you foggy, forgetful, flabby, we gain weight, etc. All these things you guys are feeling is a high likelihood it's because you're building way too much reverse T3. And I need to show you where that comes from and how we get rid of it. Okay? Now, statistically, in the United States, you ready for this? They estimate that 90% of Americans, if surveyed, would say, yes, I have at least 1 or 3 of these. Okay? There was a statement made by the American Thyroid Foundation that said 9 out of 10 Americans have a thyroid condition, but it's undiagnosed because our current system only looks at the surface. So you may be walking around symptomatic and go, well, I think it's my thyroid. You get it tested, your doctor says it is not your thyroid, and that's the trap that we get stuck in. Does that make sense? So I want to show you today how we can get away from them saying, I don't know what's causing this, into what we know is causing it. So just to take a peek, this was me. I ran this some time ago, back in 2016. And if you look at mine, my TSH is low to normal. Now, the normal TSH medically is between 0.4 and 4.5. Now, can I teach you guys something real quick? If a lab has a value that's low and a value that's high, it's because when they ran the average of, say, hundreds of thousands of people's blood tests, they discovered that, well, the average person sits around 2.0. Now, I'm going to ask you something real quick. In the United States, are we averagely healthy or averagely sick? So the number one problem with medical tests today is the normals are based off of sick people. So just think about this for a minute. And that's why every lab you have has different values, because it gets even deeper. The lab itself establishes its normal reference range. So LabCorp, which is one of the largest labs in the United States, has a specific range of 0.4 to 4.5. If you went to a different lab, Douglas Labs, for example, and you had them run a test, they might say, no, 0.7 to 3.6. So the challenge becomes you have to be very careful about letting the lab values tell you if you're in the normal range or not. Now, what we know is the normal TSH is between about 0.7 and 1.5, and I don't care what lab is running it, that is the healthy level of thyroid hormones. So I have normal TSH, my T4 is normal, my percentage of T3 flowing around on my bounded proteins are normal. So according to my medical doctor, am I a thyroid patient? No. So if I go to an endocrinologist who starts to go deeper, a specialist, and they start running tests and they say, okay, well, your T3 is normal, your reverse T3, remember the toxic one, is, well, a little bit in there. See how it's 16.7? So on their range, I'm right in the middle, which means I'm abnormal because I'm the classic unhealthy. Reverse T3, write this down, should be less than 9. Less than 9. So I have a slight spike in my reverse T3, but because the lab I ran it with says, well, everybody has it at that level, it's normal. So unless you know what you're looking for, you can get sucked down the wrong path. And then when I ran my hormones to see what my antibodies were doing, I recognized, right there, thyroglobulin antibodies spiked. So back when I ran this, all of what I was feeling was because of the fact that I had an autoimmune thyroid. Again, remember, 90% chance that's something that's happening for you. Yes?
What happens when your TSH is high? I'm sitting here looking at my lab.
We're going to go over that in just a second. Yes.
Way off.
So here's the thing. When TSH is high, it is because this number is usually low and this number is usually high, the reverse T3. Now, there's other situations that can create it, so I'm going to go through that in just a second. But see, most of us, if you're taking a medication, you already go, well, this is high, and I want to know why. So let's go through this, okay? In the normal reactions of the human body, inside the thyroid, oh gosh, this thing is all out of order. I apologize. I'll come back to that in a second. I want to get to right. Here we go. Okay, ready? What's that? There is a sweet spot for it. Ready? They look at TSH because it's the only thing externally. TSH is driven based upon the levels of each of these. Okay, so if TSH is high, it typically means either T4 is low, and we have to find out why. T3 is low, and we have to find out why. Reverse T3 is high, and we have to find out why, the antibodies are present, and what the antibodies do is they actually go in and eat the T4 and the T3. They treat it as if it's a virus. Your body would say, well, the hormone I'm producing is toxic, so it goes and kills it just like you had an autoimmune condition. Or, the big one, there's a receptor interference, and I'll go through what the receptors are in a moment. All of these, though, are caused by these three things. Remember I said I was going to share with you the three causes of all thyroid conditions. There's either an interference in how the nerve is talking to the gland, and it's not secreting the hormone properly. There's a toxicity issue within the liver because that's how we convert. T4 must be turned into T3. If T3 is not present and reverse T3 is high, TSH will elevate because it's going, I don't have enough active hormone. That's one way. If there's a receptor interference, a heavy metal, a toxin, or something to that effect, then it goes up because it says, well, I can't get it into the cell. The cells are starving. Your cells go, where is all the active thyroid hormone? It's not getting in there, so it goes up. Or it's because there's an antibody response and it's actually killing them. So if you watch this, your brain secretes a hormone called TSH. It tells the thyroid to make T4. It goes in the blood as an inactive hormone. It does nothing until it's converted into the active hormone. And here's the trick. Gosh, I wish this would work. 60 to 70% of the conversion into active hormone takes place in your liver. Now, those of you who are taking a thyroid medication, has your doctor said there could be a problem with your liver, and that's why you're thyroid? So you have. That's because we've talked before also, too. Okay? But the likelihood that your MD is saying it's a conversion issue in your liver is 0, because there's no drug that I can give that will increase the conversion into the active forms. 60 to 70% of your thyroid responsibility is your liver doing the job, not your thyroid. Remember, I said you have to stop looking at your thyroid as being the problem. It's just doing what it's being told to do. Where the conversion takes place is where all the activity happens. Now, the remaining portion, 20 to 30% of the conversion, takes place in your intestines. Now, just out of curiosity, today, are our livers getting better or worse over time? What about our digestive system? Much, much worse, okay? So could you have a digestive disorder that's making your thyroid become inactive? Yes. Can you have a liver disorder? Yes. Now the challenge is almost all of the control for how these organs work come from our spine. So what if you have an asymptomatic neurological blockage that's slowing down your organ function and thus we're not converting properly? So what happens is the T3 is supposed to go to the cells of your body to tell your DNA what to do. And if you want that cell to burn fat, it has to have the T3 land directly on the receptor. It has to get inside this receptor. Now, this is where the magic happens. Okay, and I want to take just a minute to explain this. Receptors are like antennas. It would be the equivalent of, you guys know how there's a cell phone tower? And it sends the signal for your cell phone to work? Your cell phone is the receptor. It has to receive the signal. Now, you guys have bars on your thing that tells you how strong it is, right? So if I have, depending upon the kind of phone you have, 5 bars, then I know, my God, I'm 100% receiving the signal. What happens to the function when you only have 1 bar? Okay, today, our phones are mostly internet computers, right? We don't really talk to people anymore. We text them and we look stuff up online. Would you agree? Okay, so when it's a 1 bar, you're like, this page is taking forever to load. Now look at the analogy. My body is taking forever to do what it's supposed to do, okay? When the receptor is interfered with, T3 can't land on it. What's supposed to happen is a very clear, healthy receptor has T3 land on it, and that's how you burn fat. That's how you get energy. That's how your hair starts to grow back. That's how brain fog clears. What would a test of normal look like? Well, blood work-wise, everything would fall in the normal pattern. So here's what happens, okay? There's something called toxin-induced thyroid resistance. Write this down, TITR, toxin-induced thyroid resistance. Is it possible that your thyroid's making the normal amount of hormone, your liver's converting it properly, your intestines are converting it properly, it's flowing through the blood, but there's something inside the receptor so it can't land? Is that possible? Yes. Okay, the number one thing that blocks it is a toxin called mercury. Mercury gets inside this and sticks and gets stuck in there. Also, we know that organic and non-organic toxins, pesticides and herbicides, plastics, dioxins. Look, I could do a 2-hour seminar just on toxicity today. Okay? The number one challenge for the thyroid are the plastics and the dioxins that we get in our diet. And here's something just to throw it out to show you how epidemic it is today. There's a specific toxin found in plastic that when we heat it up and we swallow it, it actually goes in and directly binds to this, and it doesn't ever let go. What is the number one thing Americans stop at every day, put into a cup and add a plastic lid to and drink through that cup every day? Now, the coffee's not the problem. It's the paper cup lined with plastic and the plastic lid as the hot liquid passes through, because the plastics are toxic to us. And what happens is when you heat up a plastic or you put it in the microwave or you put food in it, the toxins from the plastic get into the product or into you, and they bind to the receptors. There's ways to test for this, and I'm going to show you how to do that. But here's the thing. If your TSH is low, the reason it's low is because your body's saying, well, look, I'm making all this stuff properly. I am producing for you T3, but it's just flowing around because it can't. Your T3 would go up and your TSH would go down. This is the early warning signs that your thyroid is starting to fail. Wait for a second, because I'll show you how it goes up over time. Does this make sense to you guys? Some of you are sitting here today with a toxin-induced receptor interference, and your thyroid systems are starting to shut down, and you're going, why does my doctor say it's not my thyroid? Because it will be low to normal on their tests. Does that make sense? They'll go, oh, it's low, it's good, it's supposed to be low. But it's actually an underlying problem. Now, if we get to what's called a suboptimal thyroid, it's when you produce it within the thyroid, but there's toxicity or neurological interference to the liver or the intestines. So instead of converting it into T3, it converts it into that toxic hormone called reverse T3. The more stressed you are, the more stressed your nerve system is, the more stressed your liver is, the more toxic you are, the more your body just innately expresses it into reverse T3. And what reverse T3 does is it gets inside the receptor. It also blocks it. So when T3 is trying to get in there, it says, I can't, the reverse T3 is in the way. Does that make sense to you guys? Oh, it does it?
Yes.
Okay. It's the silence of like, oh my God, this is a lot more complicated than I thought, isn't it? Okay? Thus, the reason you need somebody who knows what they're doing to guide you and help you with this, okay? All you need to know is this is probably 80 to 90% of the reason why you say, why am I tired all the time? Why can't I sleep? And if you've never had it tested, this is the cause. Now, how do we get reverse T3 to go away? We have to find the interference that is preventing your liver and your intestine from converting it into T3. Does that make sense? There's a specific reason your liver's making it into reverse T3 instead of T3, which I'll go through in a moment. So this person, ready, has a high TSH. Let's see if this is you. High TSH, normal T4, and a low T3. High TSH, normal T4, low T3. Now watch this though. What would the doctor do? What would they do? MD would say do what? Take medication. What medication do they give you? This. Now watch. This is not the problem. The problem is the conversion. Your liver and your intestines are stressed out. So you take this and you make more of that. Wild, isn't it? The drug they give you to fix your labs will make your labs look good, but it will make the condition worse because it will elevate the reverse T3, and you will go like this. Well, doc, I started taking my drug and I didn't lose any weight. And in fact, my hair is falling out worse. And I'm tired all the time. And he'll rerun your tests and go, let's take a peek. He'll go, well, they're normal. I have no idea. I don't know what's going on. It's not your thyroid. Yeah, exactly, right? So it could also be, though, an autoimmune thyroid. So see, the thing is you've got to figure out for yourself which one is it. There's 3 main categories. And once you know what it is, the correction is very simple. What happens in an autoimmune thyroid is your body makes the T4, like it should, and then you have antibodies that go in there and they nuke it out. So they like eat it up. So your T4 will go down. If your T4 goes down, your T3 goes down, down, and your TSH goes up because it says, gosh, I don't know what's happening. Your cells are starving for the T3, so they don't produce the energy that they should. You're not burning fat. It's the same thing. The only difference is it's not because of reverse T3, it's because you have antibodies. So in this one, the TSH is high, and the other 2 are low. Why are they low? Your body's eating them, going, these are like viruses. Let's get rid of it, get rid of it, get rid of it. But your doctor would do what? They'll give you the medication, which will make the number go up, and you actually feed the autoimmunity. It's like you're giving your disease more stuff to eat. So do you guys see why today it's such a challenge? Because there's an ignorance in our healthcare profession. Yes?
What's the percentage of a person that's type 1 diabetes, which is an autoimmune
Oh, that would have this? Yes. So usually it's extremely high, 80 to 90%, because autoimmune diseases come usually in pairs. Okay, this is worth noting. If you have one autoimmune condition, you typically have another one somewhere else. You either know about it or you don't. And typically the most expressive autoimmune condition today is thyroid. So if you have type 1 diabetes, and we know that's autoimmune, then you more than likely have this. If you have rheumatoid arthritis, which is autoimmune, you more than likely also have this. If you have lupus, which is autoimmune, you more than likely also have that. Does that make sense? So the key here is you just need to figure out which one do you have. Now, I want to show you why the autoimmunity is such a big deal, because typically no one tests for this. This is a cell within inside of your thyroid. Its job is to produce the thyroglobulin. Okay, I want to see if you ever paid attention. Thyroglobulin is a backbone protein. Remember, you have to attach iodine using the thyroid peroxidase enzyme to the thyroglobulin protein to make the hormone. Does that make sense? So when we run a test to see if you're autoimmune, we're looking to see, do you have antibodies against the backbone protein? If you do, what it means is your body's going, well, as soon as you make it, destroy it. As soon as you make it, destroy it. As soon as you make it, destroy it. So can a person who has thyroglobulin antibodies make T4? No. If I can't make T4, so if my T4 goes down, can I convert it then into T3? No. So my T3 will go down. When the T3 goes down, what does TSH do as a response? It goes up. So TSH goes up, and your doctor says, take more Synthroid. But the problem is not the lack of the ability to have T4, it's the fact that you're actually destroying the enzyme in the first place. Now, can you have a non-active, no antibody response against thyroglobulin and have an antibody response against the enzyme? So notice, the thyroid makes thyroglobulin. You need an enzyme to take the iodine and attach it to the globulin. What if your body's attacking the enzyme? What would happen? You can't make this either. So that's why it's really important to know, are you attacking the globulin protein? Are you attacking the enzyme? Or worse, are you attacking both? Does that make sense? And I hate to say it, but 9 out of 10 times you're attacking both. An autoimmune condition is prevalent typically because there's something going on with the digestive system, because this is where all autoimmunity starts from in the first place. So if you know what it is, then the neat thing is you can actually look at a lab, if it's done properly, and you can automatically know, I know the type of thyroid condition I have. Okay, in review, 90% chance if you're currently taking a thyroid medication, you have an autoimmune thyroid. 90% chance. If you don't have autoimmune thyroid, then it's more than likely a receptor issue. Something is stuck inside the receptor. Remember, your cell sits here, there's the receptor, and there's something inside of here. It's either a toxin or it's the reverse T3 sitting inside of it. When reverse T3 sits inside, it makes you feel like you're falling apart. Does that make sense? And if you can't convert it properly, then what you would see is a drop in T3, a rise in TSH, and an elevation in reverse T3. And if that's dominant, you can do everything you want. You can go to Whole Foods and buy their juice cleanses. You can go to the gym. You can become a vegan, and nothing will work because it's stuck inside the receptor. And so what I want to teach you is how do we pry it all apart. Does that make sense? Yes. Now, in order to do that, I'm going to ask you guys to help me read a lab and see if we can figure out, with what you now know, if you can tell me what kind of thyroid condition this is. TSH is normal. T4 is normal. T3 is low. Reverse T3 is high. So what are we thinking automatically? There's autoimmunity, because you can see the antibodies here and here. I see they're excessively high. But if it's a reverse T3 high, that tells me there's toxins in the receptor, and the conversion is not happening properly within the liver and the intestines. T4 is being produced normally, yes? It's going into the liver, and what is it being turned into? Reverse T3. Also at the same time, though, there's an autoimmunity present, so it's attacking this T4, and you would say, well, then how can it be normal? Medicated. Does that make sense? I see someone who's taking a medication, who's not converting properly, and who has an autoimmunity. They know nothing about this, and that was Colleen who did the video in the beginning when I met with you guys as we started this, okay? She's been 20 years taking thyroid medications, and her doctor says, your labs look great, they look great, you're doing everything great, and we find the underlying issues. So you have to get the test done in order for you to figure out what it is. It's a suboptimal toxin receptor resistant autoimmune thyroid, which means there's more than one cause for this. Would you agree? So in order to understand how to fix it, we got to go dig deep into the three main causes, which is this. Okay? If there's nerve interference, then you lose the performance of the organs. So the thyroid starts to become underactive, the liver becomes underactive and it can't convert properly, the intestines become underactive and they can't convert properly, and what starts to happen is we get the gut leak or microbiome dysfunctions. We're going to spend some time on each of these, and I'm going to help you guys to see how you can actually clear this stuff out. Starting with the first, only because of all three of them, this is the most important. Neurological interference is what creates suboptimal performance. Your thyroid sits right underneath the Adam's apple of your neck. Little tiny guy. It's about that big. And that gland has a nerve that comes from the middle of your neck, cervical 3, 4, and 5, right in the middle of your neck. Now, just out of curiosity, could you have no toxins, no receptor issues, and have a nerve that's decreasing the ability for the thyroid to make its own hormones in the first place? Yes, you can. The challenge is when I start saying stuff like, there might be a nerve that's interfered with, what does your brain start thinking? Well, I don't have what? Pain. So therefore, because I have no pain, I must not have the nerve interference. And it doesn't work like that. You can actually have up to 40% damage. If this is a nerve, like this, you can have 40% compression and or irritation or damage to the nerve before you actually feel it. This is where it gets dangerous because some of you are walking around with 20, 30, 18, 15% nerve damage, but you're not aware of it, but your body is aware of it. You can feel things are off, but you don't go, God, I feel like my third cervical vertebrae is out of alignment, right? Wouldn't it be great if we could have some app we could put on our phone that would scan our body and go, these are the bones that are out of alignment? Like, I would love it, right? There is some technology today that can do that. But you also have a nerve that comes from the top of your skull right here that also controls the thyroid. Now watch this, really important. These nerves speed it up, these nerves slow it down. Now watch, if you have an interference in a nerve that speeds the thyroid up, normally that nerve would say, hey, make more hormone, make more hormone, make more hormone. If I compress the speed nerve, what will happen to the hormone production? Will it go up or go down? It'll go down, okay? Now, if you have damage and compression to the nerve that normally slows it down, it would do what? Go up. Hypothyroid, hyperthyroid. Does that make sense? Neurologically, this is the number one missed condition, the creation of it. Nobody looks for it because we usually don't think we have it. Now, remember, your liver produces the ability for you to take the inactive T4 and activate it, okay? This process right here happens in the liver and the intestines. So what if you don't have nerve compression here, so your thyroid's making it properly, but you have nerve compression to either of these organs? Is that possible? Yes. Okay, so which ones would those be? In the middle of the back, thoracic 7, 8, 9, and 10 speed the liver's function. So if you have irritation to this, the liver slows down. Does that make sense? Now, just out of curiosity, okay? That is between these 2 points, from right here to right here. So you guys tell me, has anybody ever had like that moment where you're like, oh, God, just did. Yeah. Okay? And how many of you go like this? It's time for a massage. It's time that somebody walk on my back. I mean, I've seen people do literally everything, right? Hey, can you grab this arm? Hey, can you grab this arm? And right? So we'll do anything we can. But what you should be thinking is, oh my God, I wonder if I'm losing liver function. That's what you should. I know, right? It's so audacious, isn't it? Nobody thinks about this stuff. But again, it would be the relation. I wish we had a system in our brain that would say, oh my God, your middle back, you need to think about your liver. What I'm trying to teach you is this is the reason so many of us are so frustrated because we don't look where the cause is from. Your intestines are controlled by a massive portion of your spine, 9 through 12 in the thoracics, 1 through 3. Out of curiosity, why do you think we have so many nerves that control our digestive system? Why does the thyroid only get 3, the liver gets 4 or 5, but the gut gets a ton of them? Why is that? It's an immense organ. And did you guys know right now the research is saying 80% of your global immunity comes from your digestive system. So if you pinch a nerve to your gut, there's redundancy built in. God said, well, no, I need this thing to work. And I need it to work all the time. So he gives millions of different nerve pathways to it. And it's the same thing. We have the ones that speed it up and we have the ones that slow it down. The number one thing that I see in our clinic when I do evaluations is there's a spinal misalignment that you didn't know about that's interfering with the communication between your brain and your thyroid, your liver, your intestines, or all three of them. Unfortunately, for most of us, it's all three. And when we walk around ominously thinking, well, I don't have this problem, therefore I'm not going to address it, that's the trap that we can get stuck in. I really encourage you to look at what your nerve system looks like, not from a do I have pain, but do I have function. And how you can do that is by understanding the analogy. In your body, your spine is the powerhouse. It's like, brain is Duke energy. The nerve system is the pathway, just like your fuse box, right? What's the problem right here? What's wrong with that? Breaker's off. So the switch has been thrown, and wherever this goes, what's happening? Is there something wrong with wherever it goes? What if it's your garbage disposal? Is there anything wrong with the garbage disposal?
No, probably not.
But is there anything wrong with it? Functionally, it's not working. But the question is there anything tangibly wrong with it? So if I hire a mechanic and say, hey, run every test you can on this garbage disposal, he's going to say, there's nothing wrong with it. What a good mechanic would do is say, well, let's just make sure it's plugged in or on. And you would come out here. Now, guys, do you understand the analogy? You would look for the misalignment, and what would you do? Realign it. And then all of a sudden, what happens? It turns back on again. It's the same analogy with your spine. Most of you are walking around with what are known as unknown misalignments. Now, normally from the front, it should be completely straight. Yet, when I test people, 95 to almost 100% have some sort of curvature pattern, a hip that's forward, a rotation, and we often are like, oh, it's no big deal because I don't feel it. I'm here to tell you today, if you have damage to your nerve system, we are not an on-off pathway. Thank God, right? What if all of a sudden I accidentally, whoops, I just turned my heart nerve off? Okay, we have instead what's known as a percentage issue. 100% is health and healing, 0% is no function at all. The question is, where are you? Where are you? I would want to do everything I can to enhance this to its full 100% capacity. It's partly why I became a chiropractor. It's partly why I became a functional practitioner, because I have to say, look, I'm not talking about pain, I'm talking about function of the human body. Chiropractic is marvelous. And when I say chiropractic, some people just turn their brains off. They're like, oh, no. Chiropractic speech, get adjusted. Now, I'm not talking about it from neck pain, back pain, headaches. I'm talking about it from pure raw power. If you have an interference to your nerve, it is affecting your body no matter if you believe it or not. It's present. Just like I could say, I don't believe in gravity, Dr. Ernst, but when I drop this pen, I expect it to stay right here. What's going to happen? We would say they're crazy for thinking that way, wouldn't we? Yet some people think I'm crazy for saying the reason that you're unhealthy is because you have nerve damage. This is what should happen. When we take an x-ray of your neck from the side, there's a normal alignment pattern and spaces that allow us to see the nerves that come out. So remember, third, fourth, fifth speeds the thyroid up. First cervical nerve slows it down. What if we took an x-ray and we saw that this was out of alignment or these nerves were pinched? It shows me cause and effect. Now look, if you come in and you get an x-ray and it looks like this, and I get to say, hallelujah, you do not have nerve involvement, which would mean it has to be either toxicity or gut. Does that make sense? It's got to be one of the three. So remember Angela said, hey, I want to show you the x-rays, right? I met with Angela, and I'm going to ask you guys, is this in the normal alignment position? No. Is her neck in the normal alignment curve pattern? No. What about the discs right here? Are they thick or thin in reference? Here's a thick one. Do you see it? What's this one? And this one? So here's the nerves that run out to the thyroid. So what is her thyroid doing? It's asleep. It's not functioning properly. Okay, it's as simple as this. Now, if I start working with her and we begin to do physical therapy, chiropractic, rehabilitation, spinal molding techniques, things I can teach you guys, can we start to see them open up and see functionality come back? Because that was 2 months. I know some people have been to chiropractors for 2 years and they get an x-ray and it looks exactly the same. I'm not doing the crack, how do you feel, have a nice day. We're doing physical, tangible, instrument-based releases where we x-ray and re-x-ray to determine that there's movement. And we follow up with you and check up on you regularly to make sure it's moving forward. If we can get to the state where it actually goes to normal, now I get to say, well, Angela, guess what? Your thyroid is fully reconnected. Some of you, this is the answer that you've been looking for and just no one's ever talked to you about it. Does that make sense? And all I can say is you need to figure out a way to find out if it's happening. Now remember I said, wouldn't it be great if we had some app on our phone that could tell us if our nerves were pinched? There is a technology that exists that we can actually run a scan on your spine. Look at it go by itself. We can run a scan on your spine and we can say, oh gosh, right in this region there's something on. Now remember, the thyroid is C3, C4, C5, this zone. So does this person have thyroid nerve damage? Yeah. Yes. So if I was to say, this is a primary cause of why your thyroid isn't working, do you guys now see why I can say that? Because it's evident. If I take an x-ray and I look, for example, and I see the interference and we clear it and we rerun a scan and we see something like this happen, if they reduce and pull inward, the stress is coming off. White is normal, green is mild, blue is moderate, red is severe, black is damage. Does that make sense? So if I can go through and show you, look, you've been clearing this nerve, you've been doing the therapies at home, look at this improve, it's almost like this magic starts to kick off. You'll go, oh my God, my body is getting better. And typically most people get their energy back, they lose weight, they feel great. Remember Angela said she lost 30-something plus pounds in a couple months? It's because we clear the nerves. Okay, you can get other x-rays taken that are a little more specific that can actually look inside the body. Okay, from the front, remember we said the cervical nerve vagus can interfere with how your thyroid works. Do you see the space here and here, how they're even? Can you guys see that? What's the difference on this one? Now you know the unique thing about this? Sometimes I show this x-ray and everybody's like, oh my God, she must have had raging what? So right here, right? Boom, like this. Raging neck pain. Not a lick. Headaches? None. Ringing in the ears? No. Facial pains? No. Completely asymptomatic. Didn't even know this was existing. Took an x-ray and I went, right there, that is a compression to the vagus nerve that exits. It looks to me like somehow this got pushed this way. And she goes, oh, you know what? I was in this car accident years ago where a car came and hit me like this from the side. So watch, right, from the side. And I asked her, I said, well, did you do anything about it? And what do you think she said? No. Why not? I didn't have any. Ugh. You guys realize? Please, like if you can learn one thing today, stop letting the way you feel tell you how healthy you are. How many cancer patients have felt great their whole life and then they end up with cancer? How many people dropped out of a heart attack and didn't even know they had it blocked in their arteries? You cannot equate how you feel with how healthy you are. You have to look at how you're functioning. It is worth getting functional tests done to find out. Look, an x-ray is only a couple $100, and if you had the right x-ray taken and it could show you exactly what it was, best investment of your life. And I want to show you, I think I have it next. She wanted to share with you, oh, I put it at the minute. This lady, his name is Sarah, she wants to share with you the change that took place in her life. And I'll show you guys the video in just a moment for that. So what a gut can do is it can create the autoimmunity. So we can have neurological blockage where the nerves are pinched. We could have a digestive issue that's spiking the autoimmunity. And this is worth noting because, again, 90% of underactive thyroids who have high TSH and they're taking Synthroid is because what your body's doing is it's attacking the gland's production in the first place. What happens is a gut is designed to protect you and seal the ability for you to get exposed to viruses, toxins, pathogens, bacteria, etc. And in a normal lining of the intestines, the cells are really close next to each other. So all of the stuff that we produce, our waste products, the foods we eat, the toxins we have, they should just pass right through us and enter into the toilet. Does that make sense? We now know that there's a condition where you irritate the intestinal lining because of either your diet or your food or the medications. I'll show you some of the causes. And they start to spread apart. And what happens is toxins and viruses and bacteria and particles of foods and proteins leak out, get into your blood, and what your body does is it sees those proteins as a foreign object. And your body will produce an immune response that says, these are not supposed to be here, so build an immune response against them. Now the unique thing is the enzymes and the proteins in your thyroid look a lot like the proteins that we consume when we eat our foods. Because where do we get the proteins to make the backbones of our hormones from? From what we eat. Okay, so if you're eating healthy foods, right? Remember I said you could be a vegan, you can eat the best food on the planet, and you can still have a thyroid problem that doesn't heal well, because if it's leaking through the intestines, you're spiking the autoimmunity, and that attacks the thyroid gland. It's a 90% chance that you have this and you don't recognize it's going on because, again, medically we don't test it. Leaky gut has been directly affected to the nature of how your thyroid performs function, and also it leads to other issues where most people say stuff, well, yeah, my sinuses clog up, but then what do we do when we say it? Well, it's just seasonally. And because everybody has sinus issues, it must be normal. Or we'll say, well, my joints are aching more in the morning. And as I wake up and I go walk throughout the day, they're getting better. So it must just be some reason that in the morning my joints are aching. It's a sign your gut's leaking. If you have things like adrenal fatigue and I can't just restore my energy, mostly what the energy comes from is the T3 is supposed to activate the cells in your adrenal glands to secrete adrenaline. And if I gave all of you a shot of adrenaline right now, how would you feel? Energetic and fabulous. The reason you can't is because there's an interference and your body's not producing it properly, typically because the gut's leaking. And we know it can create digestive issues outright, and now we know it creates our brain to not even perform right. Where do you think the brain fog comes from in people who are thyroid deficient? Because the gut leaks and it irritates the intestinal membranes that produces the wrong hormones in the first place. So what I'm hoping you see is it's a big animal. But it could be simplified down if you just got the right test done to figure out, do you have this? Now, there's a unique way to test for the microbiome. And the first way is to say, well, look, have you in your past consumed, or are you currently right now consuming wheat and grain-based products? Are you guys all okay if I talk to you about this? Yes. Breads today are the leading cause of irritation to your intestines. When I say breads, I mean tortilla wraps, even organic ones, pastas, crackers, cookies, all the grains that we eat today. There have been studies that show that the gluten we consume directly splits it apart. And if you guys have ever eaten a meal and all of a sudden you felt that sort of like, nose run where it's clear, anybody? That's a sign the gut is still in an inflamed state because of something that you ate. It's sort of the leak in the nose that happens because the gut is leaking. If you've been exposed to genetically modified foods, which I hate to say it, but almost all of us are today, would you agree? The plastics we talked about can directly interfere with it. Pesticides and herbicides on our foods. If you're an aggressive worker-outer, if there is such a phrase for that, somebody who goes to like CrossFit 6 days a week, you're working out like crazy, it actually has been shown to irritate your intestines worse, which is why a lot of people, they end up crashing when they work out like crazy. And we also know that the medications we consume, any infections we have, the food allergies, the reason potatoes are up here is because starch-based foods turn into sugar, and sugar irritates the leaky gut. So if you're taking thyroid medications, you've got to say, well, look, I've got to reduce my carb intake, cut my gluten down, not eat the genetically modified foods, stop using plastics, go organic. You guys see it's a big challenge. But it's easy to do if you know that this is your trigger. If your gut test comes back and says, hey, you're fine, and you have more toxin and neurological, then I get to know, well, we don't really have to work on cleaning out your diet. We have to work on clearing your spine and doing a detox. Does that make sense? It's worth testing. And it's an easy test. If you stand on a scale that has the ability to measure how your body's actually made. For example, how much fat, muscle, protein, water in my leg compared to my arm, compared to my abdomen, etc. What we tend to see with gut leaks is that more than 50% of your total fat will be in your intestine. And here's the unique thing behind that. The cells of your intestines are, again, they're supposed to be really tight together to prevent a leak. So if you have a leaky gut and you have all this space between them, your body will innately say, wait a second, I've got to heal this. I'm trying to repair you. I want you to be well. Remember, I said earlier, your body's always trying to fix it. There's more power in you for healing than there is anywhere else. When a bone's broken, it grows back together again. So when a gut's leaking, guess what your body does? I've got to heal it. I've got to seal it. So it fills it up with fat. So if you have a lot of leaks in your intestines, if your cells are spread apart, you would have a lot of fat in your intestines. And one way of knowing it is you can physically see it on some of us. But then on others, we can go, well, I don't know, I look pretty good. I wonder what it looks like. And we end up seeing it as an internal fat. So if you stood on a scale and I go, okay, you weigh 188 pounds. This is this person. He came to one of my events, came in and got tested. And I said, okay, you've got 60 pounds of fat on you. By the way, that's way too much for your height and age. It should only be 32 pounds. You see how important it is to get testing done? I can tell him, well, look, first of all, we definitely need to lose 30 pounds, but you've got 34 pounds in your abdomen, so that's a 58% amount of fat. If you have more than 50% of your fat in your abdomen, guaranteed your gut's leaking. Write it down. 50% or more fat in your abdomen, your gut's leaking. 50% or more. So I can have you stand on this scale, just run some measurements, and I can see if your gut's leaking or not just by looking at it. Now here's the joy of it. If we find out there's nerve interference, if we see there's toxicity, if we find a gut that's leaking, I can teach you how to go through dietary cleansing, detoxification, direct targeted fat burning, and we can monitor this and see, okay, what happens over time? So notice how he was up in the upper 180s, drops all the way down to 160 in just about 4.5 months. Down to 38% body fat in the intestines. What does that tell me? This gut is now not leaking, which tells me now we're decreasing the autoimmunity, which tells me now your body's repairing itself as opposed to fighting itself. If we don't do this and we consistently medicate, what does it do? It gets worse. It is worth discovering if you have it. And I'll be honest, the corrective process is not that complicated. Here's how we do it. We run a profile on your intestines. It's a urine test. It'll tell us the exact relationship of how much bacteria do you have if you're overgrown in certain strains, and now more importantly, because this is a big issue for a lot of us, are you overgrown with yeast in your intestines? The number one thing I see that causes a lot of people's leaky gut is we have a fungus in our gut. It's called Candida. Have you guys heard of this? Okay? Most people, medically, there's no way to test for it. This is a lab that's relatively new. It's run through Genova. And what it does is it shows me your marker for how much Candida you have. So this is a gentleman who I showed you his stuff before. He came to one of my events. His name is Daniel. And I said, Daniel, you have yeast in your intestines. Look how high your bacterial markers are. If you have lots and lots and lots of bacterial markers in your urine, your gut is leaking. So I can see how bad it is. And I can teach him, okay, the gut would leak because there's neurological damage to the gut in the first place. Does that make sense? Because the nerves from here control the gut. If the nerves are damaged, the gut is irritated. Number two, it's the diet. So he goes, yeah, I eat like everybody else does, right? Breakfast is oatmeal and Pop-Tarts and, you know, everything else like everybody eats. Donuts here, there, snacks, high gluten diet, lots of inflammatory foods. And when we teach you how to go through a dietary process, what we can see is, again, your body will heal itself. When I met him, to here he is today, and the only thing I could say is he goes, not only am I still a demi-dad, but I'm a healthy dad. And his why behind doing this, when I met with him, I said, why do you want to do this? He goes, because I have 2 kids, my life is falling apart. If I don't do this now, what if I end up not being here for them? Does that make sense? Mostly what you should do is not do a health transformation for yourself, but do it for your spouse. Do it for your family. Yeah. Do it for your kids. Yes, sir?
What time frame was that again?
That's 4.5 months. 4.5 months. And then here's the thing. Remember I told you about Sarah?
Hi, my name's Sarah. I'm excited to share a little of my story with you today because about 6 months ago I was you. I had heard about a seminar my husband found on the internet about thyroid issues and are you struggling and haven't received any help, and that was me. I was diagnosed with thyroid issues about 20 years ago and I started Thyroid, and it was fairly manageable most of my life, but about 3 years ago I hit a wall. I was exhausted all the time. I couldn't get through the day without sleeping. I couldn't think clearly, couldn't communicate, which is very uncharacteristic of me. I was struggling also with some severe anxiety and depression, also very uncharacteristic of me. And I was starting to feel fairly hopeless. I remember going to Walmart one time, and after I did my grocery shopping, I had to sleep for 20 minutes in the car before I was awake enough to drive home. I went to the doctor and said, what is the deal? I can't function. And they upped my medication, and they gave me an antidepressant, and nothing was helping. So when I heard about the seminar and I came and heard what Dr. Ernst had to say, honestly, I thought, this can't be right. It's too simple. And yet this idea that our body is very complex and there are a lot of systems that have to work together made a lot of sense. He did the most thorough assessment of my health that I've ever received. And after seeing my deficiencies and toxicity levels and things that were out of line and that needed adjustment, I started on a treatment plan. And within 3 weeks of adjustments, I started to wake up. And within a month or 2 of being on the nutrition plan, I began to feel like myself again. And I can't tell you how exciting that was. I'm now through the treatment, the initial treatment plan, and I'm awake and I feel wonderful. I have a lot of energy. I lost 20 pounds, which is a lovely perk. The whole thing has been challenging, but totally worth it. So I'm here today to say, listen well. And if I can give you any encouragement, it's to trust this process. and know that it can give you your life back.
So has anybody ever been at that point where it's like falling apart, looking for answers? Notice how the doctor's just more and more meds. I mean, I remember when she shared this with me, and I'm like, we've got to get this on camera. Like, I got to share this with people. Because she went from a complete transformation. This is her labs, just so I can show this to you. I met her, and in 4 months, the reason you lose weight isn't because of the effect of what we're doing. It's because your body will make you lose weight by yourself. Does that make sense? It's not a weight loss program. It's a health program. You lose weight, and that tells me that we're moving in the right direction. Because what does T3 do? T3 makes you lose weight. Reverse T3, the toxic one, makes you gain weight. So when we look at a lab, what do we see? Reverse T3, massive elevation. Yet her medical tests on TSH, T4, etc. were normal because what is she doing? She's taking the medication. Here's the trick. When you take the medication, if there's nerve involvement, gut involvement, or you're toxic, you will take the med and turn it into the very hormone that makes your condition worse. I hate to say it, but I almost think the pharmaceutical company goes, well, I know that's going to happen. Because if you take the drug, you'll get worse, which means you'll need to go back to the doctor, and they'll need to give you more. And then when that one doesn't work, they'll give you a second one. You guys understand, it's designed to hide the symptoms, but make the condition more unavailable for correction. And also, what does she have? She has the peroxidase antibody enzymes and the thyroglobulin antibodies, which means she's autoimmune thyroid. I promise you, 9 out of 10 chance this is what's going on with you, but because it's not being assessed. Did you have these done? Thyroid peroxidase antibodies, globulins, reverse T3? And is it improved?
I don't know. I haven't had it done.
Haven't had it
I
retested.
had that done in March.
Did they tell you why it was doing this?
No, and the odd thing is my THS is off the charts high, but all the other tests, everything came back in the normal range.
That means there's a toxin bound in the receptor then. That would be the only reason. Because again, remember, if there's a toxin bound there, the TSH is going, make more, make more, make more, make more. For some reason, your cell is sitting there going, I don't see any of this. And that's a toxicity issue. And we're going to talk about that in just a second. But watch, the reason I show this with you is finding out if you have it and letting your body burn itself off and resetting this. This was the retest when she said, I'm completed with my therapy program. You guys remember she said that? I reran this test and I went, look at this. Down to normal, down to normal, down to normal. Everything's here, and she's completely off her thyroid medication now. Isn't that amazing? 20 years, 5 months. For her, it was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 months for her. Each point on here is a 1-month check-in point with me. Because here's the other thing that's unique. Can't just give it to you and say, go do this. What do we have to do? We have to monitor you and make sure it's working. If we work together, and in 4 weeks, she's down 10 pounds, and she's like, woo, this is fantastic. Well, I know you're moving in the right direction, right? Now, some of you might go, well, I don't know if I need to lose weight. It will only do what it needs to do. If you don't have 10 pounds to lose, you won't lose 10 pounds, but we would see the relationships change. We would see your labs change. We check your lab work about every 8 to 10 weeks. We check your body composition every 4 weeks. We check your neurological prowess every 6 to 8 weeks. There's a whole program and a design behind how it works, and I promise you it works. This is Jacqueline. She sent me a text back in July. She goes, Dr. Ernst, I'm at my doctor's office. They just gave me a report that says I have been taking this medication for years. I don't even have a thyroid, which some people, they have it removed, right? So if you do not have a thyroid, technically you're supposed to have to take this stuff for the rest of your life. But watch this. If they can reduce her medication because she's taking too much, doesn't even have a thyroid, what does that tell me? She is converting it properly, better. She has less toxicity, her gut's tighter, and her doctor says, even though you have no thyroid, for some reason we have to give you less. Isn't that amazing? So it works so well that your body will clear itself out. It doesn't matter if you don't have a thyroid or not. You have to have the conversion process working. You have to have the receptors being free. I promise you, your body has more power than we give it credit to. Thyroid cancer, 45 to 50% of her thyroid removed. Same thing. She goes, I lost 40 pounds. Down on her dosage. She's now into what's called the non-medication thyroid stage, where she's taking natural thyroid supplements, which is giving her the same result. Tammy came to my event last year, and she said, like, who was it that said, what about diabetes? Was it you, sir, about diabetes? She came to my thyroid event because she found an article that we wrote about how thyroid connects to diabetes, and I was working with her, and her diabetes cleared out in 90 days. So I promise you, you have this innate power inside of you, but if you have an interference, just like I said, if this is supposed to hit the floor and it can't, how do we make this hit the floor? We remove the interference. Does that make sense? You just need to know what your interference is. And the top 3 interferences again, neurological, leaky gut, and a chemical stress, which would be worth paying attention to for you. Yes, sir?
I don't care how good you get. You go to a regular family physician,
Yes.
they're going to be very resistant about you dropping anything, and most of the time my doctor wants to add something.
Well, again, so part of it, and we talked about this, right? Their lab ranges are designed to prescribe a medication. So as things move, right, sometimes they panic and they freak out and they go, we got to give you more meds. Okay, secondly, wouldn't they be resistant because that's what they're trained in their whole life, right? But if we can make it so like we did with you, right? Remember, we're like, your numbers are improving so well, they would go, well, we have to reduce the drug. That's how you get a doctor to actually make sure that you're doing what you need to do. But you have to teach them and educate them like we've had this conversation, right? Sometimes your doctor's like, I don't know what's going on because we don't even test this stuff. We have no clue. It's your responsibility to learn it, to anchor to what the values are, and to trust that the system works in itself. Trust me, I've done this 11 years here in Charlotte now. Thousands of people I've seen this work with. Yes.
We're the customer.
Yes. Well, you're the healer. You're the doctor. You're the one who can do the transformation.
Doctor, are you going to mention anything about nodules and how to...
Yes, so we're coming up onto it, yes. Okay? Now, here's the thing. When we talk about chemicals, we know today that the toxicities that are present are higher than ever before. Would you agree? 45 years ago, we didn't have to worry about things like Roundup being sprayed onto our food products. We didn't have to worry about 80,000 different chemicals being put into beauty products or to salon things. And we didn't even have to worry about the nature that the carpets and the glues and the things we use today are highly toxic. The challenge with this is your cell membranes, again, have those receptors that sit on the side of them. Toxins, like medications and foods and things, have this sticky ability to hang out inside the cell membrane. And the more toxins you have on your cell, the more inflammation this membrane gets. And as your sinuses get clogged with inflammation, your receptors can be clogged because of toxicity. It either gets inside of here and binds it, or it inflames the cell membrane so much that it hides the receptor. Does that make sense? If you have toxicity present, you would know it because of the relationship of what your labs look like on the blood test and because of certain toxic panels we can run and discover. These are the top 5 things that toxify us, and the challenge is sometimes we look at stuff and we say, well, how can mom make me toxic? Out of curiosity. Passing it to her, to us, through her breast milk, and through the fact that we grew up inside of mom. So a toxic environment can lead to a toxic child. They're now finding out that today children are born with more toxins today than they were 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago. We're finding precancerous, severe chemical toxins in the umbilical cord nature of a child. So we're, as children, being born already with an interference, which is why today we're seeing adult-based conditions show up in our teenage, younger years, etc. And I'll tell you one thing, throwing more medications at them is only making them more toxic. And that's the challenge that we have today. By far, the most toxic thing you can take for your thyroid is the very medication that you're taking for your thyroid in the first place. And this is the caveat. Because it leads to a leaky gut, they're technically, by drug overdose in the United States, more dangerous than the amount of traffic accidents, guns, or falls that are actually happening. Medication kills more people than anything else, and yet we willingly go and ask for it sometimes. Yes?
When you said toxic homes, are you speaking
Mold.
of chemicals?
Well, that too we'll talk about in a second. I'm going to kind of break down each one individually, but typically what's the most toxic in our house are the chemicals that we use and the fact that there may be mold or mildew or radon or some other kind of like we can't see it type of a toxin in the house itself. But if medications are the most toxic, again, this is the challenge, right? You all want to get off of it. The only way to get off of it, though, is to fix the underlying roots so that your body says, I'm over-medicated, then we can pull back. Does that make sense? Now, when we talk about foods, okay, I hope you guys would realize that we are eating ourselves into our sicknesses typically today. All right? I think you get an idea of what a healthy, whole, real food is, yet for a lot of us, this is what we typically are eating on a day-to-day basis. And it's been estimated that 95% of all chronic diseases, thyroid, diabetes, heart disease, MS, Parkinson's, is because of the foods we eat and how it inflames our gut and leads to the leak that causes the autoimmunity that our body then attacks ourselves with. The greatest thing you can ever do is clean out your diet and clean out your house. Now, I'm sharing these with you for one specific reason. Anything that is blue as a chemical, because that stuff's blue when you dump it in. This stuff is blue, isn't it? Yeah. These have blue soap that's stuck to it, right? This stuff has something called xylene. Xylene is one of the most toxic products on the planet today. And typically when we spray it in the air, you guys know how you can kind of smell the chemical? Or you wash your pots and pans with this stuff and it takes like 30 minutes to rinse it off until you can feel like it's gone, right? When we wash our clothes or our food or our cleaning plates and things like this with chemicals, we absorb them into our body. Okay? And if you're using these things, these are a direct interference into the system that blocks the receptor that says, I can't get in there. And some of you may have already gone the route of pulling this stuff out of your house and out of your home, and maybe you see a difference and improvement, but it is definitely something that we have to address, is the global toxicities. We also know that some of you are walking around with a toxin in your mouth right now that leads to the heavy metal toxicity, because remember I said mercury is the #1 metal that interferes with this. Now here's the unique thing about the connection with your teeth and your thyroid. The back 2 molars on the upper and lower sides of your mouth, if you have a filling in the back 2, left or right, those teeth are directly connected neurologically to the same nerves that go to your thyroid. Now, almost everybody that I work with that has a thyroid problem that's taking, like, say, Thyroid or levothyroxine or whatever, we'll just say, hey, real quick, open your mouth. We look up, and what do you think the likelihood that we see a silver filling in those top 2 teeth are? Extremely high. Now here's the problem with it. If you have that mercury filling there, you are absorbing potentially the mercury 24 hours, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. So does it need to come out? Yes. Okay, if you go to your dentist, classic dentist, and you say take it out, you have to be very careful because there's an entire process for removing this properly. And there's even a way that you need to test it to determine if it's leaking in the first place. So I'm only going to say this to let you know, if you're the person here and you're like, Dr. Ernst, I've cleaned out my diet, I've detoxed, I've been going to a chiropractor, I've been doing everything right, I'm fixing those 2 legs and I'm still not getting well, it could be a toxicity issue. And I can help you and point you into a direction. We can test the teeth, it's very easy to do, and we can find out if there's irritation to the teeth that go to your thyroid. Look at this as far as like the signs and symptoms of mercury toxicity and tell me if they don't look a lot like a thyroid. Depression, fatigue, anxiety, forgetfulness, constipation. This is what you would look at if you're mercury overloaded, and yet when you look at these, it's almost all the same symptoms as someone who has what? A low thyroid. Why? Because if it's in the receptor, then you can't get the reaction to take place. It's blocking. You guys see the connection? It's blocking it, and it's one of the main causes. Are there tests you can do to find out if you have these toxins inside of your body? Yes. One of which is called meta-oxy. And I used to give this to anybody who came to my office, and I would say, let's see it, let's run it and find out how toxic you are. And I've done over 1,000 of them, and after 100% of all 1,000 of them coming back positive, we decided, okay, let's not do it in the beginning, let's do it as you go through care so you can see yourself improving. Does that make sense? Here's an example of what I mean by coming back positive. There is a marker called malonylaldehyde, this guy right here. When it's present in your urine, it's a byproduct of you having damage to the cell membranes because of toxins being present. If there's a toxin here, it damages the cell membrane, and that marker comes off the cell and you urinate it out. It's a very simple test that you take some urine and you drop it inside of a glass vial, and if the urine turns the color of red wine, you are toxic. And again, I used to run this on people who would come into my clinic, and 100% of them would come back looking like that. Here's one here, here's one here. And everybody goes, Dr. Ernst, I might as well just know that I'm toxic. Once we want to figure out what to do is to how do we get rid of it then? Does that make sense? The #1 challenge with toxicity is your liver is responsible for detoxing you. I'll answer it in just a second. Liver is responsible for detoxing you, yes? And isn't your liver responsible for the conversion of the thyroid hormones? So do you see how the toxicity could be causing the very issue within the liver? And in order to determine if your liver's toxic, we have to run a liver detoxing panel that shows us phase 1, phase 2, everything. There's a way to actually find out, is it too much xylene? Is it too much pesticide? Is it a heavy metal? You guys can have these tests done, and I can show you how to do that. Yes?
I've been told that when they took blood, to take a blood test or something like that. My blood was real dark. And
Right.
they said that was a sign of acidity.
It can be. So the challenge is there's so many things that can relate to do we have a blood toxicity or not. Often that's just the outward visible sign. But what's going on structurally at an underlying chemical level would be the important thing to look at. Typically the way we assess toxins is we look at your urine because your body is supposed to naturally dump toxins in the urine in the first place, yes? So if you have a lot of toxicity markers in your urine, we get to say, okay, we know an underlying cause. The challenge is this. If I could give a take-home message, and I'll talk about the nodules in just a second. Almost all of us are toxic. Almost all of us have a non-functioning, fully capacity working relationship with our liver and our intestines. We have gut leaks, and most of you are walking around with undiagnosed neurological interference, and that's the core 3 interferences that make it so the thyroid doesn't work properly. Does that make sense? If you figure out which one or all 3 of them it is, and I can show you exactly how to clear them out, then your body will naturally heal by itself. Where does a nodule come from? Give me 1 second, I'll answer it. A nodule is this. It's your thyroid tissue in your neck going, I have a problem with the peroxidase enzyme being attacked, so all the iodine that's flowing in my blood is not being attached to the binding protein, and so the thyroid starts to enlarge itself to try to make more space to make more hormone. As the thyroid keeps enlarging, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger in a result, and what happens is you see a nodule start to show up almost like a little cancerous area. It is a growth within the thyroid because there's inactivity within the enzyme itself. It's a sign of autoimmune disease taking place because the body's starting to expand itself. It's doing it because it's trying to help you to heal, but the challenge is, again, if I keep throwing the medication at it, what will happen to the nodule? And when a nodule gets big enough, eventually they'll say it is a goiter, and if they biopsy it and see that it's abnormal cellular functions, they'll label it as cancer, and then they'll cut the thyroid out, but in all reality, it's actually just an autoimmune condition underlying. Can the nodules clear out and go away? Yes. Can a cancerous thyroid that hasn't yet been cut out clear out? Yes. If it's already been cut out and been removed, do you still have hope? Yes. Because you would need to focus on the conversion process within the liver and the intestines and the neurological side to make sure it works at 100%. Does that make sense?
Sir, I just wanted to ask, it might be kind of a dumb question, but I'm going to ask.
I don't think any question is dumb. I doubt it. They probably want to ask the same one that you want to. They're just a little nervous in doing it.
Well, I'm nervous at asking too. Wonder if you just don't take your medication, will you die?
Well, here's the thing, okay? If you have, I mean, it's a good, anybody else ever thought that, just out of curiosity? Isn't that the number one reason why people are so afraid? Okay, watch, I'll use an analogy.
Now I'm shaking.
Bunch of blood pressure, right? I got high blood pressure, I'm taking blood pressure medications. I said just stop it. Don't you guys go, my pressure's gonna shoot sky high and I'm gonna explode, right? My cholesterol is gonna go up through the roof, I'm gonna clog, I'm gonna have a heart attack. My thyroid would go overactive, I'm gonna fall apart and die. What would be the only reason that would happen? If you're taking a medication which is lowering some sort of lab value or making something normal, okay? And you have an underlying cause trigger, neurological, toxicity, gut. Remember the underlying cause triggers. If these are still present and you stop a med, will the symptoms get worse? Yes. Would your pressure go up? Would your cholesterol go up? So here's the thing. You can't just stop taking a medication until you address the underlying root. Now, if I fix the nerve system, if I clear the toxicity, and I clear the gut, and I'm taking my medications, what would happen? No. You would start to react and respond to where everything's going too low. That's when we stop taking the medication. Does that make sense? If my pressure drops, if my TSH goes way down, we would say, oh my God, you're over-medicating your thyroid. Stop taking it, because what have you done? You have fixed the underlying cause. There is always an underlying root. And the 3 roots that relate to your thyroid and its functionality is neurological, the toxicity if present, the leaky gut if present, and most of you have all 3. And so the tests that determine if you have it, the x-rays that you can take of your spine to look for neurological damage, the scan that I showed you, remember with the bars and the colors coming off so we can locate it. You can get blood testing, you can get urine testing, you can have heavy metal testing. And the triggers for it is the fact that if you don't know that it's happening and you try to work out or you try to change your diet and you go vegan or you become a pescatarian, a ketogenic, Paleolithic, whatever. You understand? There's so many of them. I become a South Beach, pescatarian, vegetarian. There's so many of them. If you have the underlying issue, okay, You could eat the greatest way on the planet, but it's not going to fix it. So we don't want to trigger it by trying to mask it. We don't even want to take a supplement to try to mask it because we're not going after the cause. So the way you reverse it is you figure out your type. Are you a neurogenic, toxicogenic, leaky gut, autoimmune patient or not? Does that make sense? The only way to know, though, is to test. And as soon as we start talking about testing, I know what's happening. Some of you are like, oh my God, it's going to cost a fortune. Because if one of the blood tests through LabCorp or your insurance is, $1,000, $2,000, then the challenge, because some of you will say, well, I can't afford the test. Would you agree? If an x-ray costs a couple $100, if the urine test is $1,000, which it is, it's about $1,300 for the microbiome urine profiling test if you paid cash for it or if you use your insurance. And if the blood test is between $8,000 to $1,000, you're looking at almost $2,000 worth of testing. The average person that comes into my clinic that has Blue Cross, MedCost, UHC, Aetna, etc., if I want to do everything, if I want to test their spine, test their gut, look at their toxicity, run a blood test, run a urine test, figure out if their cells are working properly, it's about $1,600 on the average. Now, if you have Blue Cross and they say your deductible's at $2,000, how much do you have to pay for the testing? $1,600. Now watch this. If you have a deductible that's $1,500, how much do you have to pay for the test? $1,500. And then now, will they cover it is the question. So I'm going to ask you a question. Will Blue Cross cover a functional panel for your thyroid? No. Will they cover a leaky gut test for your intestines? So how much would you have to pay even if you have insurance? $1,600. The crazy thing is your insurance is going to set the fee and they're going to tell you if you can do it or not. Now here's the other issue with it. If he has Blue Cross Blue Shield, and they cover his medical doctor running the test, but they don't cover me running the test, can his medical doctor run the test that I just showed you today? Can they? Will they? Can they? Yes. Will they? Why not? Oh, I heard 8 different answers. It's not standard of care. Okay, in medicine we have what's called standard of care. Number 2, watch this. Even if they did, if your MD ran a microbiome test on you, and he came back and he said, first of all, I don't know what this is, but it says that you have something called gut dysbiosis and bacterial overgrowth and your gut's leaking. Real quick, ready? What medication do they have that can fix that? There is none. When an MD has no drug to give to you and no necessity to run a test, that's why the insurance says that's a non-covered service. Because your insurance will pay for your medications, correct? And they'll pay for your office visits to your doctor. But the moment you try to figure out for yourself how to take care of yourself, they're going to say, you must pay for that. And if you think about it, it's of good responsibility, yes? It's your health, it's your responsibility, it's your job to do it. Now, what I'd like to offer one of you, or 2 of you, or 3, whoever wants to do this, is the idea that you can activate your body's inner ability to heal when you take the road less traveled, which would be getting an evaluation that you've probably never had done before. What I'm going to do for you, if you want to do this, if you've never had the opportunity to have a full thyroid panel run, a microbiome panel run, a toxicity panel run, a neurological test run, is I would like to offer it to you at what it actually cost me to get the testing done. Do you guys realize that as a doctor, if I run the test and I pay for it myself, they give me a discount because I run thousands of them. So the lab would say this, well, Dr. Ernst, you don't have to pay $800 for the lab because A, you're a doctor, and B, you've already run 13,000 of these tests. We'll give it to you for $150. Okay, Dr. Ernst, the urine panel that you want to run that normally costs $1,300, we'll give it to you for $300. So they go through and give me flat out discounts. So what I would like to do for you as a blessing that God blessed to me is say, look, if you're willing to cover the cost of the various tests at the minimum, get your neurological system test, let's see if you have a leaky gut, and let's run an in-office toxicity exam. At the minimum, would you agree? If you have these 3, could we go deeper and run the blood test and find out if you have the autoimmunity, etc.? Would you agree? The blood test is a necessity and it needs to be done. It's going to have a cost in my clinic, so it's going to make it go up by $200 because it costs me $200 to run the test. Does that make sense? Now, if we want to run the full panel and look at your microbiome, look at the conversion processes, it's a little more just because of the cost of the second lab. All I'm asking you to do is recoup my expense for me to take a peek at you and see if I can show you where to go for your health. Does that make sense? Now, if you're willing, I'd like to do one more thing, because this is what God told me to do with passing a blessing on to you, is this. Today, if you decide to book an appointment and you purchase either of these 3, you get not only just the testing, but you get 3 separate visits in my clinic. 1 to review the exams, 2 to give you a test therapy, 3 to retest you, and 4 to sit down together for an hour, one-on-one, and say, this is the exact plan. I did this with the 2 of you. This is the exact plan that's going to get you well and push you towards your health. And if you decide to follow the plan, then I'm going to give you a credit of what you spent directly into your account so that you now have a discount on your therapies. Does that make sense? In essence, what I'm asking you to do is to let me do this. Will you show me your commitment by buying one of the 3 testing at my price? Let me evaluate you. Let me figure out what's going on with you. And then when I sit down with you and show you what to do, would you be willing to let me give you the money back as an investment in your care program? Which would mean then I actually paid for all of this for you. Does that make sense to you guys? Okay, that's the gifting that I want to give to whoever wants to do that today. My office has a 2-week wait list on the average. And right now, what my staff did is they opened up my schedule and they literally carved out times. We knew this event was going to be today. They carved out spots. I believe there are 15, 16, something like that, that she carved out and says, we're going to keep these time frames open for the hope that one of you would not like to have to wait for the time frame it would normally take if you come to me. You call into clinic right now, you're looking at maybe the mid to end of October before you can meet with me. I'm asking, would you like to do it now? You can have this thing started you can get your test run starting next week, and we can begin to show you how to move forward in your health right now. If that's you and you want to do that, on the back of this, you can see this sheet right here? On the back of it, does everybody have one of these? Is the opportunity for you to put your name, your information, and to choose your experience in the clinic. All I ask you to do is, if you want to do this, pick the level and the depth of the testing. Do you want the minimum test? And you would scratch through it. It says $497. I want you to write the word $297. Do you want the mid-level test? Let's run the blood test, figure out what's going on with your thyroid, and discover how to clear it out. Or do you want the ultimate test? By the way, if you look at the price differences, this one is a $1,000 discount compared to the other 2. You get all of it for $697 and the opportunity for me to credit that back to your account so you can start to get yourself corrected. If you're going to do that, I ask one thing. Over here on the side, we have various times that we're available to meet with you to review results. I would ask that you circle 2 of them. Put a star next to the one that you would like the most. So as an example, if you're going, I would really like to do a Wednesday at 9 a.m. Okay, circle it, put a star next to it, but give me an alternative. Could you do 3:30 p.m. on a Monday or a Friday? Because they have my schedule and it'll help them to pull closer to what's available for you guys. Does that make sense? What's involved in this process is you getting a full examination in the clinic, both of the labs depending upon which one you pick, and when the results come back, we sit down one-on-one, review what we found, do a therapy session, either teach you how to do a detoxing plan, clear a nerve, walk you through whatever your protocol needs to be, and then I retest you to determine your improvement. And on the 3rd visit, it's 3 separate visits, we sit down for up to an hour, we lay the whole plan out and show you exactly what you need to do, and you have your credit automatically applied. Yes?
This map's kind of hard to read. Where is your...
It is behind this hotel, just in the corner over there. You guys know where Statesville Road is?
Yeah.
Okay, so right there. Like, if you could go out the back of the door, you would see it from here. On this map, if you can see it, see that little tiny blue dotted line right there? It's to say if you were here, you could walk there, walk here, and walk there in less than 5 minutes. So we are a 5-minute walk from here. You guys can find my clinic because it's right behind that. That's great. It's just in that shopping center right on this side over here. Okay? What I would like for you to do is determine the plan that you want, pick the option, put the price over top of it, sign a date, and then in just a moment, over into the corner so you can chat with my staff and they'll help you guys with the testing if you choose to do that. Is that fair? Okay.
So the date they gonna take is the date of the testing.
So you have to fill out some paperwork, number 1, because I need to create an experience with you. Number 2, you need to come into the office because at the minimum, you're getting your neurological testing, your x-rays, the in-office exam, etc. When you come into the clinic, we will give you your labs that you will go out and get, right? So you go to LabCorp locally. It's all paid for. You walk in, they treat you like VIP, okay? Literally. Then we give you the urine test, you collect it, and you send it to the lab. It takes about 7 to 10 days for all the testing that I need initially to come back. We schedule your second visit when the labs are in. You and I sit down one-on-one. Here's what we found. Here's what's going on. Here's the neurological. Here's the gut. Whatever it is, we do a therapy. We retest. and then I schedule a time for you to come back so I can sit down, show you the improvements, and we lay out an entire plan of action for you guys. 3 separate visits in the clinic with the testing. All I need to know is, do you want me to have you change your life and change your health, and let me help you do that. Make sense? Are we good? Okay. So I hope you guys also know that today, it is just about 1 o'clock. I have a radio show that I'm hosting at 3 o'clock. So I do have to sort of kind of split out of here pretty quick. And I know what's going to happen. Some of you are going to go, yeah, but I have a question. I need to know. Okay? Would you be willing to kind of see that the reason I want to do this with you, if you want to, is so that I can not only answer your question, but I can probably answer the questions you didn't even know to ask. If I can test you, I will know everything about your metabolism, your toxicity, and I can guarantee you that that answer is going to be stronger than the one that I can give you right here, right now, with the speculation in my mind. Okay? What I can tell you is you've got a 90% chance you're autoimmune. How would I know if you are? Got a test. You have a 90% chance you have a neurological interference somewhere in your neck, your mid-back, or your low back. How would I know if that's the case? You have a 90% chance your gut's leaking. You guys see? You got to get the testing for me to be able to hardcore answer your questions, which is why I'm offering you the likelihood of you doing it, and also me saying it's my gift to you. I'll credit it back to you. Everybody okay with that? Thank you so much for coming today. Are you guys okay? Hold on 1 second, real quick. He's about to come knock me down, it looks like. Go ahead. Yes, sir.
Terrible ringing in the ears.
So it's called tinnitus. And if you have it in your ears, ready for this? Watch, guys. The ear is right where the vagus nerve sits. So I'm thinking vagal nerve compression because it's ears. Do your eyes sometimes randomly twitch? Or they go vagus nerve. Now, real quick, where does the vagus nerve go? What does it control? Thyroid and liver and intestines and everything. So what we often see is elevated blood pressure, elevated cholesterol, elevated sugar sometimes. I'm not professing this over you, but sometimes it's all together. The best way to find out if the vagus nerve is compressed, X-ray with the mouth open, looking for the deviations, the scans, and the testing. Is that a fair answer? You guys okay? Thank you so much for coming. It was truly, on my side, a privilege and an honor to be here for you guys. I really hope that what we prayed for happened. Did you hear what you needed to hear? Did you get an answer for what you were looking for? Like we mentioned before, we're at that point, right? Pivot point. Do we go the same path we've always been doing, or do we take the road less traveled? My prayer is you make the decision to take the road less traveled. And with that, I hope I see you at some point in the future. Thank you for attending today.